He gave one sip of water to a dying Apache woman. The next morning, hundreds of warriors surrounded his shack and called him to the tribal council. Jonas Hale thought he was saving the stranger's life, but he had unknowingly stepped into a deadly secret filled with blood, betrayal, and a war that could destroy everyone. And when the tribe finally learned the truth about the woman he rescued, everything changed. What happened next? Did the Apache warriors kill Jonas? Or did he become the only man willing to stand beside them against a terrifying enemy? Watch the full story till the end and follow our page for more powerful Western stories like this. Before we start the story, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is right now? The night was cold and silent. Gray mist covered the prairie, and the weak moonlight barely touched the dry land. Inside a broken wooden shack near Dry Creek, Jonas Hale slept beside a dying fire. Then suddenly, thundering hoofbeats. Jonas's eyes snapped open. The sound shook the ground outside his shack like a storm rolling across the earth. He quickly grabbed his old rifle and moved to the door. His tired hands pushed the wood open with a loud creak, and his heart nearly stopped. More than a dozen Apache warriors sat on horseback outside his home. They did not move. They looked like shadows carved from stone. Torchlight danced across their faces, revealing dark red war paint and cold eyes that stared directly at him. At the center of them sat an old chief wrapped in a deerskin cloak. His long black and silver hair moved in the wind. The chief slowly pushed his horse forward. "You must come with us," he said in a deep, heavy voice. "The tribal council has called your name." Jonas tightened his grip on the doorframe. His name? Why? He was nobody, just a poor rancher living alone at the edge of the wilderness. His shack leaked when it rained. His fences leaned sideways. His cattle were thin and weak. Most people in town laughed at him when they spoke his name. But deep inside, Jonas already knew why these warriors had come. His mind returned to the night before. The blood, the ravine, the dying woman, and the single sip of water that had changed everything. Jonas Hale was 46 years old. Long ago, he had fought in the Civil War. He had seen men scream in pain. He had watched soldiers die beside him in muddy fields filled with smoke and fire. When the war finally ended, Jonas returned home, broken. But the war had not taken everything from him. Life took the rest. His wife and young son died during the same cruel winter he returned from battle. After that, Jonas stopped caring about the world. He moved far away from town and lived alone on a small piece of dry land. He raised cattle, fixed fences, dug wells, and tried to forget the sound of gunfire that still lived inside his head. Loneliness became his only friend, until one terrible night changed everything. The evening sun had almost disappeared when Jonas spotted something near a rocky ravine. At first he thought it was an animal, but as he moved closer, his breath caught in his throat. It was a woman, an Apache woman. She lay on the stones covered in blood. Her clothes were torn. Dark bruises covered her wrists. Her breathing was weak and uneven. One of her eyes barely opened as she reached a trembling hand toward him. Jonas froze. Helping her could destroy his life. In those days, even speaking to an Apache woman could bring dangerous rumors. People would ask questions. The tribe could think he hurt her. The townspeople could call him a traitor. For several seconds, Jonas stood there without moving. Then the woman whispered something weakly. Not words, just pain. And suddenly Jonas remembered his son. The same helpless look, the same fear in dying eyes. His chest tightened. He could not leave her there. Without another thought, Jonas carefully lifted the woman into his arms and carried her back to his shack. Inside the small cabin, Jonas laid her gently on his bamboo bed. He lit a fire. He boiled water. Then he tore apart one of his own old shirts to make bandages. The woman cried softly whenever he cleaned her wounds. But Jonas worked carefully, slowly, patiently. "You're safe here," he whispered. "No one will hurt you." The woman did not fully understand his English, but she understood his kindness. Tears filled her dark eyes. Late into the night, Jonas stayed beside her. Every time the fire weakened, he added more wood. Every time she coughed, he gave her water. Finally, just before midnight, the woman opened her eyes a little wider. Her cracked lips moved weakly. "Ayoka." Jonas realized it was her name. Then her shaking hand grabbed his wrist. "Do not leave." Her voice was barely louder than the wind. Jonas gently held her hand. "I won't leave," he said softly. And for the first time in many years, Jonas felt something move inside his lonely heart. Not pain, not grief, something warmer, something alive. Morning had not yet arrived when the sound of horses came again, this time louder, faster, deadlier. Ayoka's eyes opened in fear. She whispered something quickly in her native language. Jonas did not understand the words, but he understood the terror on her face. Then came the pounding. Dozens of warriors surrounded the shack. Dust rose into the cold morning air. Spears glimmered. Bows tightened. The Apache warriors formed a half circle around the home like hunters trapping prey. Jonas stepped outside holding his rifle, even though he knew he could never fight them all. The old chief stared at him coldly. "You touched the blood of our people," he said. "The council calls for you." Jonas looked back toward the doorway. Ayoka stood there weakly, holding the wall for support. Her eyes filled with fear. But then she slowly whispered one word. "Go." Jonas understood. If he fought, blood would spill, and Ayoka would suffer first. Slowly, Jonas lowered his rifle. 2 warriors rode forward and tied his hands with rope. Without another word, they carried him away across the prairie. Hours later, they arrived at a huge valley. Jonas stared in silence. A giant circle of fire burned at the center. Apache elders sat around the flames while hundreds of warriors stood behind them. Drums echoed through the valley. The air felt heavy and sacred. Jonas was pushed into the middle of the circle. Every eye watched him with suspicion. One silver-bearded elder stood. "You touched the daughter of our tribe," he growled. "The old law says outsiders who touch our people carry shame. What do you say for yourself?" Jonas swallowed hard, but lifted his head. "I found her dying," he said clearly. "She was bleeding in the ravine. I gave her water. I dressed her wounds. If saving a life is a crime, then I accept your judgment." Angry whispers spread through the crowd. Another elder slammed his spear into the ground. "Who will speak for you?" Silence filled the valley. Jonas looked around helplessly. Then, a weak voice broke through the crowd. "He saved me." Everyone turned. Ayoka walked slowly toward the fire. Her body still shook from her wounds, but her eyes burned with courage. "If not for him," she said, "I would be dead." The valley exploded with noise. Some warriors shouted angrily. Others stared in shock. The old chief finally rose from his seat. His dark eyes moved between Jonas and Ayoka. "If this woman speaks truth," he said slowly, "then another enemy hides among us." Ayoka then revealed the terrible truth. A group of white slavers near town had been kidnapping Apache women and children. She had discovered their secret by accident. When the slavers realized she overheard them, they captured her, beat her, and left her to die in the ravine. The entire valley erupted with rage. Warriors struck spears against the earth. Fury burned in every face. The chief raised his hand for silence. Then he looked directly at Jonas. "You saved the daughter of our tribe. But words are not enough. If you are innocent, you will ride with us, and together we will destroy the true enemy." That night, Jonas rode beside the Apache warriors beneath a dark sky full of stars. His heart pounded like it had during the war, but this battle felt different. This time he was not fighting for orders. He was fighting for what was right. Eventually, they reached the slavers' hideout deep near the ravine. Light glowed through the cabin windows. Ugly laughter echoed inside. Jonas tightened his grip on his rifle. The chief raised one hand. Silence. Then, whoosh! An arrow flew through the air and struck the cabin door. Gunfire exploded instantly. Apache warriors charged forward on horseback. Torches flew onto the roof. Flames burst into the night sky. Men screamed. Horses roared. Bullets tore through the darkness. Jonas hid behind a large rock and fired his rifle. One slaver dropped immediately. Another rushed outside swinging a knife. An Apache spear struck him in the chest. The battle became chaos. Smoke, fire, blood. Then Jonas saw something terrible. A huge slaver raised an axe and charged directly toward Ayoka. Without hesitation, Jonas stood up from cover. He aimed carefully and pulled the trigger. Bang! The man collapsed into the dirt, only feet away from her. Ayoka stared at Jonas through the firelight. For one silent moment, neither of them moved. Then she gave him a small nod, a look filled with trust, and something deeper, something neither of them could explain. By midnight, the battle was over. The slavers' hideout burned to ashes beneath the stars. The surviving Apache warriors stood silently around the flames. The old chief walked toward Jonas. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then finally, he nodded slowly. "You are no longer an outsider," he said. "Your honor now walks beside our people." Jonas lowered his rifle. His hands trembled from exhaustion. But inside his chest, something felt lighter than it had in years. Ayoka stepped beside him. Her face was pale, but her eyes shined warmly in the firelight. She did not need to say thank you. Jonas could already feel it. He sat down quietly on a stone and looked up at the endless stars above the western sky. For years he had believed his life ended when he lost his family. But now he understood something important. Sometimes one small act of kindness can change everything. One sip of water, one helping hand, one choice to save another soul. And in the brutal, wild lands of the West, that simple act of compassion had not only saved Ioka's life, it had saved his own, too. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way till the end. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. It really helps us a lot. If you want to watch more exciting stories like this, don't forget to subscribe our page right now. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is right now? And if this story touched your heart, please send some stars. Every single star gives us huge motivation to keep creating more amazing videos for you. See you in the next story. Take care of you, friends. Take